Hi there, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Jerrel. We haven't met yet. It's nice to meet you. I'm a normal human being just like you guys, and for a living, I make video games. I run my own studio, and I get to hang out with all of you on the internet. We get to talk about games, and I get to make games for you. I don't only do commercial games, I do homebrew games as well, so if you like playing games on older legacy consoles, like the Dreamcast, PSP, DS, I make games for that stuff as well. We get to make whatever we want, basically. It's a free-for-all in that respect. So, in this video today, I'm going to be sharing some of the creature designs from the upcoming Silver Falls Facetakers game. If we can get that kickstarted, it means that I'll be able to focus on the game exclusively, and I'll be able to make that game pretty quickly. I'll be sharing... It's kind of crazy. I have never really shared the designs and a close look at Silver Falls creatures. Generally, I keep that quiet because I want people to enjoy and experience these creatures in context. I don't want to spoil anything through marketing, but I think it's fun to also pull back the curtain sometimes and share a little bit because I really enjoy hearing from people who like talking about the creatures in Silver Falls, and I've never given you guys a close, clear look at it. So I'll be giving you a close look at some of the classic Silver Falls creatures, and I will be explaining how hardware limitations resulted in the iconic look for the Silver Falls creatures. The series started on the 3DS, and then it moved to Switch and Wii U. But because of having to create creatures with limited hardware, I had to create creatures that would function within those technical restraints. So I'll be explaining that process with you, and in the middle of the video, I'll be sharing my developer check-in. I haven't done a check-in in a little bit, and that's just my way of catching up with all of you and letting you know how things are going on a personal level. Again, I'm not a YouTuber. I'm not this big, bombastic, fun personality. I don't go and do, like fighting and yelling matches on the internet for fun, and I'm not here to try and, ride YouTube's algorithm and do the whole drama thing. I don't do that. I'm just a normal guy, and when any of that sort of YouTube stuff comes my way, it's not interesting to me. So I'm just a pretty chill vibe is what I'm going for here. I just want to make video games for you guys. So I'll just give you a quick look here at the Face Taker stuff, and then I will come back later in the video in a couple minutes, and then I'll go over these creature designs in detail. These were so much fun. The vast majority of these I made on live stream, getting to hang out with all of you guys. But first, I want to look at our classic Silver Falls designs. So right now, I am in the workspace for Guardians and Metal Exterminators. This is my most recent game, and if you're interested in an action RPG that is just a short mission-based dungeon crawler with a variety of missions, and for gameplay that is just in short, pretty casual bursts to fill in some odd bits of time, you get to enjoy some character lore, some fun creature designs, you get to unlock creatures and play as the creatures. There's heaps of different weapons and skills and customization. That is Silver Falls Guardians and Metal Exterminators, which is available on the Switch right now. But the first creature we'll be looking at is, I think this may be the first cryptid that you encounter and fight. I'm just racking my brain. It's one of the first in 3 Down Stars. So this creature is from 3 Down Stars. And I don't want to over-explain these creatures. I don't want to go too much into the reasoning behind the design and the lore. And I definitely don't assign them little names, nicknames that are kind of cute, except in very specific situations like Metal Exterminators and Undertakers. And those are situations in which the characters themselves have spent significant amount of time with these cryptids, and they've given them an identifying name. But the vast majority of Silver Falls cryptids, they have a name in studio, but I never put the game in the lore and in the story. And the reason being is that when you put a name to something, when you know something's name, when you are able to say something's name, you have some control over it. You have a stronger understanding of it. Your mind is able to sort of latch onto it in a way that it thinks, okay, I understand that thing. But when something doesn't have a name, then your mind instinctively scrambles to try to understand it, and it enters a sort of panic mode where it's trying to identify, okay, well, I need to come up with a name for this thing. What am I looking at? And that is why, in the vast majority of cases, I do not name the Silver Falls creatures, is I want the players to have that kind of relationship with these creatures. And that is, you have to give a name to these creatures, and you identify it yourself, so you feel like you have some sort of connection to it, but also there's a little bit of panic to it when you first see something because you don't understand what it is. It's unlike, say for example, like a vampire. You know what a vampire is, you have expectations for it, you know what a werewolf is, and they're not scary. When you encounter those in games, they're just pure fun, and that's all they are. But with Silver Falls, I want people to feel, every time they encounter a new cryptid, I mean, we're all horror enthusiasts here, right? We love horror, we love all this kind of stuff. But I want there to be a knee-jerk reaction as to, oh, shit, what is that? And secondly, that's pretty cool. So I want to explain this design here and how the hardware limitations impacted the design of it. So I had to create a creature, or creatures, working on the 3DS that, one, did not have too many bones, because having too many bones results in more processing that has to go on. I had to come up with creatures that were smaller and more compact, so they didn't have to have too much polygonal detail, so that they didn't have too many polygons. When you have too many polygons on your 3D models, it has a significant performance implication on the 3DS. And when I was creating these creatures, I didn't fully understand the limitations of how many creatures I could have on screen. There were physics calculations, so I had to keep things minimalist in terms of the design. So there's a couple bones in each arm. There's not that many. I think there's a bone there. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, I lied. That's a lot of bones. But it doesn't have to worry about fingers, and fingers tend to add a lot of detail to creatures. But I knew that I wasn't going to be able to have a high-resolution texture, because the memory available for texture was very limited on the 3DS, and there were issues with Unity 3DS that made it crash because it didn't release memory correctly for Unity 3DS. So I didn't do like a detailed topology. You can see that it's symmetrical. And so I actually used a texture resolution. Eventually it was like 32 by 32 pixels, and I just looped it. I tiled it to give it detail. And so that's how I saved on texture memory on these creatures. Was they're not topologized in an interesting way. So when I am going to do future games that feature this creature, I'm going to redo the texture. I need to paint it again by hand and paint over that. And so the same goes for this creature, which I think is a player favorite. I think Silver Falls players, they just love this guy. There has to be some charisma to your creature, So my creature designs, I always try to have as much charisma as I can. There's got to be something visually about it to where you just look at it, and even though it's this threatening thing, you look at it and you got to think, like, there's something, I kind of like this guy. There's something about him. So this is one of my first designs. It's still one of my favorites, and I don't want to explain things. I don't want to ruin that mystery and allure for people. I just loved this situation going on here. I loved his gross, gangly little fingers. This is a situation where maybe I went a little too far with the detail because there are a lot of bones in this creature, but I knew going into it, during gameplay, during story mode, there was never going to be a situation where you'd have a ton of these guys interacting with you. And so I thought it might be alright to have just a bit more detail. He does have a pretty high poly count, but this is a higher resolution version than what we saw on the 3DS. I'm trying to think about what... Sorry, I'm stuttering here. I'm trying to think about what I want to say and not say, because, again, I don't want to ruin the allure of these designs. I don't want to over-explain them. But I just want to give you a pretty good design, a good look at the design here. Now, having the specular and the bump mapping, that was not available on the 3DS. This is something that I was able to add on the Switch versions. It's just more polygonal detail, but also more detail in the texture in terms of the specularity and the bump mapping. And I wanted it to look like the flesh was sort of... I don't want to say too much, but because I had to loop the tiles for the 3DS, the texture map, because I had to loop it because they were like 32 by 32 pixels. I knew that I had to create a creature. Well, what kind of makes sense? Because now I can't have them overly detailed, and so I created a lore that sort of focused on these sort of fleshy beings. I couldn't have too much fur or anything like that because then I'd have to paint it on, and then it would be very pixely and it would look bad. And so it resulted in me coming up with this concept of these very fleshy creatures, and they were unfortunately had to be very one tone. And you can see again, this is one of the player favorites here. This guy, but I would this is a lower polygon version, but I would repaint this and redo that again. So once we move into episode Prelude was the first time I did a design where I got to have as much fidelity as I wanted. And we'll bring that guy over here to the full light of our vending machine. And this is one of my favorite designs, because this is when I really got to flex my design muscles and freedom. I knew that with the Switch, I was going to have significantly more power. I didn't have the limitation. I didn't have to tile textures, and so I got to make a high-resolution texture for this character, which meant I get to hand paint it. So I got to have different parts of the creature where you have your fur, you have your flesh, and I wanted it to look different from the other creatures that I had already created up to that point. So you sort of have this feeling that the muscle is sort of stretching across the skull here. You have the spine poking out of the flesh. Because I can have higher poly count, you can see the detail in the roots. And this is hard to see during gameplay, but you do have these vestigial hands here. And it's so hard to see this during gameplay. But I wanted that detail in there anyway. And these do actually have their own bones, and they are animated in their own. It's on the other side as well. But I wanted it to feel like this vestigial, undeveloped limb that didn't fully form out of the creature. There's one on either side as well. So this is one of my favorite designs because it was the first time I got to put more detail in the texture of the creature, which meant conceptually I could do more with the sort of capabilities and the idea of the creature. It didn't have to be just a blob of flesh, but I still wanted that skinless, fleshy look. So we've taken a look at some of the classic favorites that people often sort of message me, and they'll be playing as Silver Falls, and they'll say, "Oh man, I just ran into this thing. I just love the design." So I hope you enjoyed having a close look at that. So let's have a close look at some of the Undertakers now. I said Undertakers, Facetakers. I think I joked before, if Facetakers take your face, then what do the Undertakers take? So there's a couple different Facetaker cryptids. And I don't want to over-explain them, but I just want to let you have a good look at them. And again, explain that because I have I have an environment now where I don't have to be so limited, in terms of the design of the creature and the concept. I can do more. And so this one, I wanted this one to have a more classic feel. The colors are sort of, the colors of the light that I have are very yellow. They're washing out a bit of the detail. I'll turn the light off. And it's still not very clear here. But there is more variety in terms of the features. The lighting doesn't really show, but in gameplay, I know in gameplay and engine it looks fine. But there's sort of like harsher, bumpier brown areas to the flesh. Again, it really varies from lighting. If I had, more pale lighting, you'd see the difference better. But you can sort of see the muscle striations in the creature's body parts. I could spend more time on asymmetry, whereas the previous designs were very symmetrical. Symmetrical designs are much easier to rig and deal with and design and animate, whatnot. But having more time, you can make things asymmetrical. And it also means that previously the texture maps, you save UV space if they're symmetrical, but I don't have to do that anymore. This is one of my favorite designs here, again, because I have higher poly count. I can do things like these lips here. You sort of have these, I think I made this lower poly count. I mean a lower resolution just for performance sake. But I think I'll increase the resolution on that in engine, and I could spend more time and use physics animations. Like when the creature moves around, his sack can be physics animated, whereas on the 3DS I didn't have access to that sort of thing. Physics actually caused the 3DS to crash in the 3DS, and there were massive performance implications outside of that anyway. This face taker will take a person's face, and then they'll wear the face on that sack there. This face taker here, I really like this guy. I wanted his muscle strut. He's supposed to be more lean, right? Very lean looking. He's going to have a gooey sack, and he's going to wear stolen faces on the gooey sack. You'll be able to shoot that, and then the gooey sack will explode and it'll stun the guy. Yeah, this nice big boy. You can see he's got arms here, right? And it's going to stretch the skin of whatever player that you're playing as when it gets defeated and this thing steals the face. It will stretch the skin of the face across its arms here, and then you'll see the face of your previously defeated character there. His mouth is down here. I've been thinking about putting teeth in there. So I think I might do that. Can we give this guy a little bit of a spin? There we go. There's our boy. There's our friend. So this guy has a huge poly count, believe it or not, because he's so large. He's got like really weird looking. Boy, those are. I think I was going for a manatee sort of situation with those flaps down there. Okay, and we have this guy. I really like this design, and this is a design that I absolutely could not have done on the 3DS because these arms need to be physics animated. There's only a couple that are keyframed animation, the ones that it's using for attacks, but the vast majority of these use physics animations because it would take an insane amount of time to keyframe animate all of this for all of its various animations and how it interacts with the world and environment. So this uses physics animations, and it has a lot of different arms here, and it will hang on to the skin of the faces of the people that of your characters that it kills. It's going to hang on to them, and it's going to dangle from the arms there. So that's a look at the face takers, and again, the Kickstarter for this is active right now. The target goal for the Kickstarter is not that high, and that's just to cover the costs for a couple months so I can finish the game and get that launched. So yeah, this guy was fun. So, this was fun to design. It will be it'll be a nightmare rigging it. And then making sure everything looks just right, that bones don't interfere. We've got little crab legs there, but it's not going to be that hard to animate. So, yeah, I'll just go back to a couple other final designs before we wrap up here. So, this is a design that was created for Gaiden Delusion Destroyers, and I really love this design. I really enjoy how the texture turned out on this creature, and this is one where you can tell I really had more time and more experience at this point, and I created a library of various skin textures to detail my creatures with. So you have different pigmentations that help different parts of the body stand out. It really gives it this gross fleshy look. So this is a point where I think the designs and my capability to create these designs really matured, and so that's one that I really enjoyed. And early on, again, for the 3DS, the metal Exterminators were a design that I made because I knew that I could, okay, metal, I could just do a gray metal for the creatures. And I ended up making a very low poly count version of that. And then the metal, again, was like 32 by 32, and I looped it. But now that I have Guardians and Metal Exterminators S on the Nintendo Switch, you can see that it has a much more detailed texture here. And this is optimized. This is not like super high poly count. This is optimized for the Switch. This was a nightmare. I didn't have access to physics animation, so the tendrils, well, they're not tendrils, they're tentacles. Tendrils are for plants. So the tentacles had to be keyframe animated. It was a nightmare, but I think it really paid off. They're a charismatic enemy, and at this point I was able to make this organic metal that I'm really pleased with how that organic metal turned out. But I had to keep the design very simple, right? That was a nightmare animating. I'm just having like flashbacks to that. When I made the remaster for the Switch, I added significant amount of new content with new music. There's a new environment, new characters, and I got to create this character. And this is kind of like a fever dream. This was sort of my wish list of when I was originally making Guardians and Metal Exterminators. It was like, I'm very limited in what I can do. I got to keep detail low. And in the back of my mind, it was like, what if there's like a wish list and I could make, you know, the perfect cryptid, the perfect Metal Exterminator. And this is kind of what this is basically what I came up with. And for those of you who have played Guardians and Metal Exterminators S, you'll know that this guy's, he's very strong. He's a pain in the ass. And I just love how horrifying these blades are that chop you. He's got these stabber things as well. This thing pulsates on the top of his head. So with the Metal Exterminators, I wanted to make it very clear that these things, you know, there's some kind of organic component to it. You know, you have the other designs as well. But I'm running a bit long on the video now. I didn't realize it was going up to 20 minutes. So I'll just do a quick check-in here. After working, I went about 9 or 10 months working 130 hours a week, and that had a significant impact on my physical health. It was a nightmare. It was pretty bad working like that. And so for the past couple of weeks, I've just taken a step back. I've been resting. At this point, I'm sleeping a whole lot, and I'm taking in, I have to eat a lot. I just have to take in a ton of calories, get my electrolytes, you know, from sport drinks. I'm eating a ton of fruits and vegetables and just building my energy back up by eating a whole lot. I have to get back to physical conditioning. I need about 2 months solid of straight hard physical conditioning to get back to my peak again, to where I can go back to a full work schedule. But over the past few weeks, I haven't been using the internet. I haven't been using social media. Honestly, I'm kind of sick of people that are just online just to have a laugh and to troll people. I really don't like that word. I like to give everyone a chance. I think everyone deserves a chance to be heard and to be understood. I treat people online the way that I treat people in the real world, just with respect. And I give people a chance. I give them patience. But I'm learning now that there are people online that don't want that, and they don't care if you give them a chance. They're just there to be an asshole. And I was putting up with that for like the past 2 months or whatever. After I did the Breath of Thunder Kickstarter, I just started getting like a bunch of people that were just a-holes. And I was giving them a chance, and I was listening to people and trying to understand them. But I realized at that point that those people don't care. So, yeah, at this point, when people are just going to be a-holes, I'm just going to ignore them. So, I'm sorry, I won't be replying to everyone in your DMs in the comment section anymore. But I won't be replying to everyone. If you want to be respectful, if you want to just chat about whatever, yeah, great. You know, I'm happy to reply to that. But at this point, I'm just avoiding DMs and the comment section for a while because I'm sick of people being a-holes. I'm still catching my breath. I don't exactly know when I can return to a full work schedule, but it's important that I get back to a good, healthy state where at least I can work a bare minimum. So yeah, I'm now focusing on just recovering some health a little bit. I've been catching up on anime that I'm very far behind on. I was on episode like 590 of One Piece. So I'm trying to get caught up. I know I'm pretty far behind. But yeah, I haven't been doing much. I've just been resting. I'm trying to get some paperwork done, office stuff, you know, the bare minimum stuff. I'm trying to get the launch ready for Clasher Ball. That'll be coming to the Atari VCS. This video went on like way too long. Anyway, I really appreciate you watching. I hope this was very interesting for you, getting to look at these creature designs and hearing how the limitations of the hardware change things. So anyway, wow, this is super long. I think most people would have clicked off by now. People don't really like long videos on YouTube. All right, I appreciate you, everyone. If there's any more you would like to see from the series, please let me know. I'll put the link to the Facetakers Kickstarter in the description. We'll see how we go with that. Again, I'm not a professional Kickstarter dude. I don't know how to do the Kickstarter thing like a professional. Take care of yourselves, everyone. I'll see you around. I'm going to be less present online for a while, as I'm just resting, catching my breath, and I'm kind of sick of social media and people just acting like freaks. But I appreciate all of you have been just awesome and hanging out and talking. So take care, everyone. I'll see you around.